All right, today I'm excited to welcome Marc Schmidt to the show. Marc, thanks for joining me. How's it going today?
Going great, Brian. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely, absolutely. We hooked up on Podmatch. I really love the service for podcasters and people looking to be on the show. Profile really intrigued me, especially with the background of this show. We like to talk about how people got to where they're at, but I'd like to start with where you're at now. So if you could introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you got going on now, and then we'll circle back and talk about how you got there.
So, right now, I'm Marc Schmidt. I am the podcast host and producer of a podcast called Marc My Words. I do this after my day job. I have a day job that I do, well, during the day. And when I'm not doing that, I'm either on TikTok. That's like my new obsession here of late, or I'm running this podcast. I talk to entrepreneurs about the fork in the road and their journey. And so growing up, I just wanted to do every job out there. And I'll let you ask the question so I can tell
For
the
sure.
story later. But one thing led to another, and I felt like this was a great fit for me. I'm 5 years, over 100 episodes into it, and just working really hard to promote and to get the word out there about the show.
Nice, nice. 5 years, that's a long time. That's I think I'm at year 3 or 4. I don't even remember anymore. But multiple different shows, multiple different formats, and things like that. So, Marc, I'm glad to have you here. If we want to go back to when you were a kid, how was childhood? What did you said you wanted to do about everything under the book? What was that kind of first memory of what you wanted to be, and how did that go?
So, my first memory, my first real love, is what I'm actually doing as a career, oddly enough. I was always fascinated with television, not just like being on it, although I had a lot of questions about how that worked. But I was really interested in like taking TVs apart. Like, I grew up in the 80s, so they still had like black and white TVs you could get pretty cheap. I loved like taking them apart. I loved messing with the antenna. I also was really obsessed with like the TV lineups. And this is probably like such like a weird thing, but I used to love like studying the TV guides and looking at the lineups and how they scheduled everything. This is probably like the most unique conversation
I mean,
ever.
I wasn't that way with TV, but definitely with radio. I think every kid I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and like graduated high school mid 90s, so I was that people of that time period, I think we all sat by the radio hitting the record button, pretending to be that DJ. I think that really lends into podcasting too. I never really got onto the TV side of it, but you mentioning taking apart TVs and understanding how they work, that was me with everything. If I hadn't broke so many things when I was a kid taking them apart, I would probably be better at putting them back together. But I would take them apart and wouldn't be able to get them back together, and then people would get upset. But I definitely get that draw to the programming side, to understanding what goes into not on the entertainment level, but all the rest of the stuff.
So before I get into a continuation of my story, I was the same type of kid who wanted to record off the radio. To this day, I'm like super obsessed with music. My TikTok is actually all about, as you can see, a record collection behind me. I'm like crazy with music. But
Nice.
but just to kind of like continue, so I think I always knew that I wanted to do something in TV or entertainment or something within that realm, whether it was. So I was born with a cleft lip and palate and had a lot of negative energy and feedback towards me as far as like, oh, the way I look, the way I sound. So even though I had this desire to like perform and be out there. It was kind of like hitting away a bit. And I was a little more focused on, okay, maybe I can write for TV, or maybe I can be like a technical person, or I just wanted to be around it. But then the other side of it, and I'm not going to like call out or name names, but there was somebody very important to me, a parent who was a little bit like, I don't think they understood. One of my parents really like was all for it and understood. The other one was like, I don't understand. I don't have any connections in the entertainment business. Just get a business degree. Why are you doing this? And it
Right.
led to a lot of conflicting feelings. So
Yeah.
as a result, I was like, okay, what else can I do? And I learned that I was interested in like everything. I'm almost like a poor man's Mike Rowe. I was just interested in every single like occupation, and I had quite a few of them to back up that curiosity. And eventually I just kind of said, you know what? Forget all that noise, the negative noise, or the feedback I'm getting, or what I think I should be doing. And I just hunkered down and said, I'm going to get my degree in, television production, and we're just going to go from there.
So did the cleft lip and palate, did that give you any sort of anxiety as far as being on screen or on audio? Um, Negative feedback from that as a child. I can't imagine that it was easy. Kids are cruel. Like I know kids are cruel. Did that affect you going forward, or did it give you some tough skin to kind of power through anything?
So not only are kids cruel, adults can be cruel too. And it gave me a ton of thick skin. I always tell the story of when I was in first grade. I was in Catholic school. It was our turn to do the weekly mass. All the grades K through 8 would get together. They would do the mass, and somehow I'm getting older, so my memory's a little fuzzy on how I got the gig to read something in front of everybody, but I got it. But there was some reservation from one of the nuns, and I think maybe or maybe not some of the parents, they didn't feel confident that I could speak clearly and could do it. And it was thanks to my mom, who really stuck her neck out and helped to keep me in the conversation for doing that particular reading. I don't even remember what I read, but I wound up gaining like an important lesson through that, that you have to kind of like listen to your own voice and shut out some of the negative energy and what other people are thinking or saying. And you just gotta believe in yourself. And you learn as people are. I always like to put it as a passive aggressive kind of disillusion and treatment, where you get some people, some kids who are very negative and will talk to you negatively, but it's more like passive aggressive. Well, we're not going to actually say, you're different or point it out, but we're just going to kind of sweep you under the rug.
Right.
And that,
Exclude
that
you
was
from things.
basically the treatment that I got from kids and teachers and adults, really.
I think gaining that thick skin probably really benefited you now, with the advent of social media, which is just an absolute cesspool. You could make the best video or best audio in the world, and somebody's going to trash you in the comments, especially as you get bigger and be successful. I think that thick skin that you were able to develop probably really helps with that, because I think a lot of people that were, successful and coddled, or never really experienced any adversity like that, never any bullying or anything down those lines, they get to a point where they're trying to put themselves out there on social media or YouTube, things like that, and the negative comment just sends them for a spiral. I think you're probably well equipped to handle some negativity.
I'm pretty well equipped and I've learned a lot. So, one thing that I think a lot of people may not understand is that, first of all, they may not even know that they're really doing it. And B, they may not understand that I've been Marc Schmidt for over 40 years. I've seen it all. So, if you're treating me a certain way at this point in my life, I'm probably going to catch on. I'm probably going to understand that you're sensing or feeling a certain way about me. And it's one of those things where it still hurts. It never doesn't
Yeah.
hurt. But you also learn to just keep on going. The best advice I've ever been given, which is really simple, is that when you get kicked down and you feel like you just can't go anymore, just keep on going anyway. You know yourself, you know what your goals are, you know what you want to do, and you know what you can do. And I think for me, I think I've always known, and you might ask, why would like a 5, 6, 7 year old know this intuitively? But I've just always known that I was meant to do something or had the potential to do something and just wanted to do something bigger than myself and tell my story. I don't know why, and the universe can explain that, I guess, but that's really some of what's driven me.
So you made it through school. You went to college for TV production, and graduated. And is that your current day job? So you've stuck with that, or did you kind of transition through different stuff?
I've stuck with it, so I've done different types of things over the years. I've stayed, so a lot of people don't know that yes, there are people who have to go out in the field and produce and shoot, in a studio, out in a game or whatever it is, news coverage. But there's a lot of people who have to sit in a quiet room and do quality control. There's actually people out there who are paid to watch live programming while we're watching it at home, or they'll have to actually watch through an edited version of a show to make sure that it meets policy and
Mm.
company standards and all of that. And I didn't really know that these jobs existed until after college. So that was eye opening for me. I'm like, whoa, Mr. TV everything. I mean, this is something I didn't really know. So that's basically, without getting too involved, that's basically the kind of work I've done for the past 20 years.
I mean, it sounds interesting. I think it sounds, especially if with the background and really being drawn towards that industry. I think getting into that niche is really nice. It seems like you probably have pretty good job security, since there's so much television being produced and that needs services. So, uh, what uh, what what spurred you to start your podcast up?
So back in like the late teens of the 21st century here, not the 19 teens, which I don't know why anybody would assume the other, but I don't know, 2017, 2018, I was going to an event called LinkedIn Local when I lived in the DC area. And it was a time in my life where I was trying to find myself again. I had just been offered a buyout package. The company I was working for went through a couple different restructurings. I decided to leave. I didn't want to stick around. So I was kind of in a phase where I was trying to find myself. And at LinkedIn Local, really great group of people, talked to a lot of these entrepreneurs about making content and their experiences with it. And quite a few of them encouraged me to make my own content, to make like a podcast. And this is going back about 6, 7, 8 years now. And back then, I was still of the thinking of, no, Marc Schmidt doesn't go in front of the camera, no matter how much that performer is inside of him. That's not something that I do. But the more I was encouraged, the more I was like, okay, let me try it out. Let me see what I come up with. So I started making content on LinkedIn, and I was getting positive feedback. I was meeting people in the LinkedIn universe. And I said, hey, this is pretty cool. So I thought about the couple of times I was encouraged to make a podcast. And I said, okay, what would that even look like? I don't want to be one of those people who 1 week their episode is about playing basketball and the next it's about fixing cars. Like I didn't
Right.
want it to be, I wanted some kind of niche. So I said, what better way to pay tribute to the people who encouraged me than to do a show about how they became an entrepreneur? And I just got a ring light, a microphone, signed up for podcast hosts, like a hosting. So I signed up for Podbean,
Mhm.
$15, really simple. I said, okay, I'll use GarageBand for editing the audio. I'll use iMovie. Like it's not like I'm using Adobe or Avid. Just kept it super duper simple. Tried it out, and it just so happened that the pandemic happened at that time. So I was trying it out, and by the end of that year, I said, "Wow, I really enjoy doing this." It was mostly me talking to people I knew or friends. Then I kind of like upped the game a little bit, trying to find people in like Facebook groups and stuff. That was really fun. That was pretty successful. And then I wound up eventually finding Podmatch, and the rest is history. I've just been having the best
Podmatch
time ever since Podmatch.
Podmatch is fantastic. Alex and Alicia do an unbelievable job with the. I've been around. I think it's been 2 years now, just from different shows where I've been a member, and yeah, it makes things so simple. If anybody listening is a podcast host or wants to be or needs guests or wants to be a guest, I wholly recommend jumping on there, especially on the host side. It was at $6 a month or something for hosts. Um, you can't beat that.
No. The only issue I have with Podmatch and just, booking guests and everything is I'm getting so many requests. I don't have enough hours in the day and
Yep.
in my life to bring everybody on, unfortunately. It's so many, which that sounds like a good problem. It's kind of like it's good for my ego, but it's bad because
Right.
I'd like to have pretty much everybody on, and it's opened up so much for me. It's been amazing.
What besides the putting the content out there, what do you think some of the things that you've gained from podcasting? I know that the connections that I've made through my content and the community that I built around it, is that something that you've developed? Are there other things that you find that you benefited from having your show?
So connections and community are absolutely two of the top things I've gotten out of it. I've gained a ton of knowledge just about SEO and just what to do with, some of the deeper aspects of putting content out there, creating shorts and that kind of thing. And I really I've learned so much about things I wouldn't have probably wouldn't have done otherwise. And
Right.
so, for example, when I'm done, one big thing that I've gotten is when I'm done with this episode with you, I'm going to feel really amazing the rest of the day. There's something about being a host or a guest and connecting in a positive way like this that just lifts me up, and I'm like in an incredible mood. It's just been so good for me as a person.
I definitely understand what you're saying about that, and it's one of those things where I'll look at my schedule some days, and I'll have one interview late in the afternoon, and I'll be busy, I'll be doing stuff, and it'll get kind of close to it. And I'm like, I don't really want to do this, and and then I jump on, I talk to the person, I get done, and it's usually those are usually the best conversations I ever have, and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't cancel or reschedule that. So I definitely get that after feeling, and it's just talking positively with people, telling stories and interacting with them. I think it releases those endorphins and makes us all feel great. So I'm glad I could be a part of that for your day, and thanks for doing that for me today. I appreciate that. So podcast is you said it's interviews with entrepreneurs. How often are you releasing episodes? Tell us a little bit about the show. Is it short, long? Tell us a little bit about it.
So I'm releasing episodes once a week, every
Okay.
Thursday. You can find it right after midnight because apparently one thing I learned is to never schedule anything right at the top of the hour. So look for it 5, 10, 15 minutes after. So that's every Thursday. I'm trying to schedule shorts every day,
Mm.
and the shorts have been really effective. Not all of them get a lot of views and a lot of hits, but some of them do, and it's definitely helping to draw people to the show and make them more aware. And I don't know if we're at a point where we're telling everybody how to find it, but you can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it, and these are like the main places you can find it. Also, the video and the audio versions on YouTube. And the YouTube handle is Marc My Words 3008. And the 3008 means nothing. That's just what they gave me. You spell Mark, Marc, and if you just type in Marc My Words, you'll probably find it. You'll
Nice.
find the shorts. You'll find the episodes, which usually run about 45 to 50 minutes. I've really gotten to a point where I've established that 50 minutes is a pretty solid time. And hopefully, as I continue to timestamp everything, people can jump around and find parts they want to watch, or maybe parts they don't want to watch. And it's that kind of stuff that I'm learning and I'm continuing to just grow. The podcast is pretty much available anywhere you can find podcasts, except for Spotify. I'm having an issue getting it on Spotify. Maybe that can be another episode, but I'm working on it. I'm really trying to get it on there. So
Interesting. Interesting. I might have to connect with you and see if I can help you through that. So
appreciate that.
yeah. So you also said you've kind of have a new obsession in TikTok, and you talk about music. Let's talk about the TikTok feed for a little bit. So you talk about music. What about music? Or what do you just talk, giving your opinions or breaking things down, or
So I just started it a couple weeks ago. I've been thinking about TikTok for a long time. I've been a little hot and cold with whether I wanted to do it because it's a little hard on social media to really gain a following. And it's not even so much the following, it's the engagement. It's people connecting with you and talking to you and saying, wow, that was awesome, or I love that artist, or I love that song, or whatever. Finally, I just made it a goal. I said, okay, my ultimate goal is to get permission to go live because I love talking to people live. I do it on LinkedIn, which is another place you can find me. And basically, I also want to join the TikTok shop, which is a goal of mine. Guess you have to have 1,000 followers. So I want to do that too and just kind of build on my business, whatever, however you want to define it is that I do. But
Right. I feel you.
so
I definitely feel that however you want to define what this all is for sure.
So, just to answer to round it out on your question, I have a vinyl collection. Some of the vinyl I've collected is like pretty rare, like just something off the top of my head. I have an unopened Hootie and the Blowfish Fairweather Johnson first pressing from 1996. It's not even opened. I had to pay $100 to get it. And that's kind of where my obsession in collecting is. And I'm just trying to use my creativity to come up with like little creative ideas. I do like the show offs and I try to make it like themed. I did one on 80s soundtracks. I have a bunch of those that I just showed off. They're all like, I'm very technical about it. I'm like all into like the first pressings and the represses and trying to find the value and all that stuff. And just basically, I'm pretty open minded. I'm into everything from like Fats Domino to Zeppelin to ABBA to trying to think of an 80s artist, the Bangles to Nirvana to
Nice.
Green Day to Sabrina Carpenter. I'm into, and even Taylor Swift. Most of us, I guess, are into her. But that's basically what my TikTok is.
Nice. Nice. I encourage people to go check it out if their music. I know I'm sure you will find your niche there. You will find your people there because I know there's a ton of vinyl heads and it's coming back. Um, it was like I said, it was 80s, 90s. We were kind of on the tail end of that, and then now it's really coming back hard. So if you got into it in that time, you're like in your wheelhouse now that people are kind of gravitating back to it. So I think you hit a good one there, especially since it's a passion of yours.
I started collecting vinyl in like the early mid 90s. So the story behind that, I've been a huge ABBA fan since like the early 80s. And we're talking, I was like 3, 4 years old just listening to the Magic of ABBA 8-track in my parents' car when we were driving around. I was looking for their music on CD, but at the time, they weren't really printing any of their music on CD, just ABBA Gold. So I
Right.
started seeking it out at flea markets and I started collecting all their albums. And from there, it was that age where I was getting into like the Doors and the
Hmm.
Mamas and the Papas and stuff from the previous generation. So I was looking for stuff like that. And just off and on through the years, I've collected. And now that where I'm at in my life now, it's like, okay, I can just really go a little bit further with the collecting and buy the $70, $80
Right.
albums that would have cost me $15, $20 like 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
basically
you flip through those. So you were looking for ABBA, but you're flipping through albums, boxes of albums at flea markets, and you name the things you're going to see. All those popular artists from the 70s, they're all getting recycled into those flea markets. And man, what a trip through music you could have experienced there.
Yeah, it was back in a time where CDs were becoming a thing. Everybody wanted everything on CD. They were getting rid of those useless vinyls and cassettes. And I say useless, quote unquote. Nobody wanted it. It was yesterday's news. But I wound up, because of ABBA, I was like, I actually kind of like listening to music on vinyl too. So
Yeah.
this is kind of like a cool hobby. I thought it was cool in the mid 90s. So
You got it. You were ahead of the curve, man.
that's how I roll.
Hey, Marc, we're kind of coming up on time here. You did you told everybody the name of your podcast. I'm gonna get your links. I'll get them in the show description, the video description, audio everywhere. If you got any final parting words, I give you a couple minutes here if you want. Otherwise, we can wrap it up and get on out of here.
If I had to bring any parting words to the audience, I would say don't let imposter syndrome get the best of you. If you feel like you want to do something, if you have an idea, if you want to get in front of a camera, in front of an audience, behind a mic, whatever it is, don't let the voices in your head or the voices of yesteryear or any negativity or anybody out there who are judging you or telling you you can't or you shouldn't. Forget all that and just listen to your gut and don't let imposter syndrome keep you from fulfilling your dreams.
Marc, that's perfect. That's really well said. I appreciate you bringing that up, and I thank you for being here. And hopefully, we'll talk to you soon.
Well, thanks, Brian. I had a blast. Thanks for having me here.